Jake Thompson sat at the long, polished conference table, the sleek lines of the room reflecting the stark reality of his crumbling startup. The tension in the air felt like a palpable weight, pressing down on him as he faced the investors' faces he had once considered partners in innovation, now transformed into stern judges assessing his worth. His heart raced as he tried to maintain composure, fingers tapping nervously against the surface of the table. "Jake, this isn't what we expected. Richard," the lead investor said, his voice sharp and unyielding. "You promised us growth and innovation, but what have you delivered? A series of missed deadlines and half-baked ideas." "I understand your concerns, Richard," Jake replied, his voice steady despite the turmoil within. "We faced unforeseen challenges. The market shifted, and our product—" "Excuses," barked Lisa, another investor, leaning forward with her arms crossed tightly. "You're telling us that you couldn't adapt? We're not here to hear about your excuses. We're here for results. We need to see a change, or we're pulling out." Jake glanced around the table, desperation creeping into his expression. "I can turn this around. Just give me a little more time. I've got plans." "Plans?" Richard cut him off, shaking his head. "You've had plans for months, and look where that's gotten us. It's time to face reality, Jake. Your startup is failing." The words stung, and Jake felt a knot tighten in his stomach. He took a deep breath, trying to stave off the wave of panic threatening to engulf him. "I won't give up on this. I believe in what we're building. I just need—" "Jake," Lisa interjected, her tone softening momentarily. "We're not here to crush your dreams. We're here to protect our investments. But it's clear this isn't working. We're going to have to make some tough decisions." As the meeting continued, Jake felt the walls close in around him. Each word from the investors felt like a verdict, sealing his fate. Finally, the meeting concluded with a stark ultimatum. Either he secured new funding, or they would cut their losses. As he left the conference room, Jake's mind swirled with confusion and fear. He had poured everything into this venture, his time, his energy, and all of his savings. Now it felt as though it had all been for nothing. Later that afternoon, Jake wandered the streets of San Francisco, the city he had once adored now feeling foreign and oppressive. The bustling crowds moved past him, oblivious to his internal struggle. He passed cafes where laughter and chatter filled the air, storefronts bursting with vibrant displays, all while he felt trapped in a haze of disappointment. Every corner he turned reminded him of the dreams he had chased, now reduced to mere shadows. He stopped in front of a store window, his reflection staring back at him, a man lost in thought, his eyes reflecting the weight of his family's expectations. "You need to make something of yourself, Jake." His father's voice echoed in his mind, the pressure mounting as he recalled the countless conversations about success and achievement. "You're better than this, am I?" He murmured to himself, the question hanging heavy in the air. The ache in his chest grew as he replayed the meeting, the faces of the investors etched into his memory. What if this is all I'm meant to be? As the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting a warm glow over the city, Jake made a decision. He needed a break from this relentless pressure, a chance to breathe and regroup. The thought of a small coastal town drifted into his mind, somewhere peaceful, where he could find clarity. He pulled out his phone, fingers hovering over the screen as he searched for accommodations. With each passing moment, the call of the ocean grew stronger, promising solace and a fresh start. "Goodbye, San Francisco," he whispered, determination igniting within him. Jake took one last look at the city skyline before turning away, ready to leave behind the weight of expectations and the ghosts of his failed ambitions. He set his sights on a new horizon, where he hoped to rediscover himself away from the relentless demands of the tech world. As Jake stepped out of his car, the salty breeze whipped through his hair, carrying the scent of the ocean and a sense of unfamiliarity. The small coastal town was a stark contrast to the bustling streets of San Francisco he had just left behind. With its quaint shops and colorful houses, it felt like a scene from a postcard. Jake took a deep breath, hoping that this place could offer him the peace and clarity he desperately needed. As he wandered down the main street, he was drawn to a lively fair set up on the town's waterfront. Vibrant stalls displayed handmade crafts, local produce, and eco-friendly products. Laughter and music floated through the air, creating an atmosphere of warmth and community. Curiosity piqued. Jake made his way toward the festivities, his heart racing with a mix of excitement and apprehension. "Hey there! You look a bit lost," a cheerful voice called out. Jake turned to see a woman with bright blue eyes and a wide smile approaching him. She had wild curls and wore a tie-dye shirt that echoed the colors of the ocean. "I'm Sarah. Welcome to our little slice of paradise. Are you new here?" "Yeah, I just moved here," Jake replied, feeling a sense of relief wash over him. "I'm Jake, just trying to find my way around." "Nice to meet you, Jake. You picked the perfect time to come. This fair celebrates our commitment to sustainable living. You'll love it here." Sarah gestured enthusiastically to the various booths, her excitement infectious. "Come on, let me show you around." As they walked through the fair, Sarah explained the town's dedication to sustainability. "We believe in living in harmony with nature. Everyone here does their part, whether it's growing their own food or reducing waste. It's really amazing to see how much we can accomplish together." Jake listened intently, intrigued by her passion. "That's incredible. Back in the city, it felt like everyone was just in it for themselves. I'm not sure I've ever been part of something like this." "You'll fit right in," Sarah smiled, gesturing toward a booth where a group of children were making birdhouses out of reclaimed wood. "We're always looking for new ideas and people who want to help. You should meet our community group. We have meetings every week to discuss projects and ways to make an impact." "Sounds interesting," Jake said, feeling a flicker of hope ignite within him. "I'd love to learn more." As they continued to explore, they stopped at a booth where local farmers were selling organic vegetables. Jake picked up a glossy green bell pepper, examining its imperfections. "These look great. I've never seen produce this fresh before. That's the beauty of small-scale farming," Sarah explained. "We grow what we need and share the surplus. It's not about perfection. It's about nourishing our bodies and the earth." Jake nodded, feeling a sense of connection to this new lifestyle. "I've been thinking a lot about conscious consumption lately, especially after everything that happened with my startup. It feels like I've been living in a bubble, focused on success and profit. I want to change that." "What do you mean?" Sarah asked. Her interest piqued. "I just realized that I've been so consumed by the tech world and chasing after success that I forgot about what really matters," Jake admitted, his voice heavy with reflection. "I want to contribute to something meaningful, something that makes a difference." Sarah's eyes sparkled with enthusiasm. "You're in the right place for that. We need people who want to make a positive impact. You should come to our next meeting. We're working on some exciting projects, and your experience could really help." "I'd love to," Jake replied, a smile creeping across his face. For the first time in a long while, he felt a sense of belonging. The fair buzzed around them, filled with laughter and music, but all he could focus on was the warmth of connection. As they made their way to the next booth, Jake felt the weight of his past begin to lift. Perhaps this small coastal town could be the fresh start he had been seeking. Jake felt a surge of exhilaration as he set up his new blog, aptly titled Sustainable Steps. The sun streamed through the window of his small rental cottage, illuminating the room and filling him with a sense of purpose. He had never imagined that his journey would take such a transformative turn, but here he was, pouring his thoughts onto the digital page. "Hey, Jake, what are you working on?" Sarah's voice broke through his concentration, and he looked up to see her leaning against the doorframe, a curious smile on her face. "Just starting a blog to document my journey," he replied, a hint of pride in his tone. I want to share what I've learned about sustainability and conscious living since moving here. Sarah tilted her head, intrigued. That's awesome. I think it's a great idea. People need to hear more about how they can make a difference. Can I help? Absolutely. I could use some perspective on what to write about, Jake said, gesturing for her to join him at the small desk cluttered with notes and sketches. I was thinking of starting with my experiences in Silicon Valley and how they contrast with this new lifestyle. She nodded, her enthusiasm palpable. And we can include tips for conscious consumption, maybe even highlight local businesses that are eco-friendly. That could really resonate with the community. Jake's eyes lit up as he considered her suggestions. Yes. That would not only promote sustainable practices but also support local entrepreneurs. It's a win-win. Days turned into weeks as Jake poured his heart into his blog, documenting everything from sustainable food choices to eco-friendly DIY projects. He wrote about the lessons he learned from his past failures and the new friendships he was forging in the coastal town. As he shared stories of community gatherings and conversations with local farmers, he felt a sense of belonging that had long eluded him in the fast-paced tech world. "Look at this," Sarah exclaimed one afternoon, bursting into his cottage, holding her phone excitedly. "Your last post went viral. People are really engaging with your message." Jake's heart raced. "Really? That's incredible. What are they saying?" Comments are pouring in. They love your honesty, and they're sharing their own experiences with sustainability. "You've started a conversation, Jake." Sarah's eyes sparkled with excitement. "This could be the beginning of something big." Encouraged by the response, Jake and Sarah decided to take the next step. They organized a series of events aimed at educating the community about sustainability. "We could do workshops, community cleanups, even potluck dinners with an emphasis on local produce," Jake suggested, sketching out plans on a notepad. "I love it. Let's get the word out and invite everyone," Sarah added, her enthusiasm infectious. "We can even partner with local farmers and artisans to showcase their work." As they planned, Jake felt a renewed sense of purpose. His blog was not just a digital diary, it had become a platform for change. With Sarah by his side, he felt empowered to educate others and foster a sense of community around sustainability. One evening, as they prepared for their first community event, Jake received a notification on his phone. His blog had attracted the attention of several local influencers who wanted to collaborate. "Sarah, look at this. People want to partner with us," he said, barely able to contain his excitement. "Wow, this is amazing," she replied, glancing at his screen. "This could really amplify our message. We need to make sure we stay true to our vision, though." "Absolutely," Jake agreed, his expression turning serious. "I don't want to lose sight of what's important. This is about more than just popularity. It's about making a real difference." As the event day arrived, Jake stood nervously at the front of a small gathering in the local community center. He had invited residents to share their ideas and experiences regarding sustainable living. The room buzzed with anticipation, and he could feel the weight of their expectations. "Thank you all for coming," he began, his voice steady. "I started this blog as a way to document my journey, but it has become so much more. This community has inspired me, and I believe that together we can create meaningful change." As he spoke, he looked around the room, meeting the eyes of familiar faces, neighbors, farmers, and new friends who had found common ground in their shared commitment to sustainability. "Let's work together to build a future that respects our planet." The applause that followed felt like a warm embrace, and in that moment, Jake knew he had found his calling. His past failures had led him here, to a place where he could make a difference, one sustainable step at a time. Jake sat on the edge of his bed in the small rental cottage, the weight of the world pressing down on him. The gentle sound of waves crashing against the shore outside was a stark contrast to the turmoil in his mind. He pulled out his phone, scrolling through social media out of habit, when a notification caught his eye. It was a message from a former colleague, Alex, from his days in Silicon Valley. "Hey Jake, heard you're hanging out with tree huggers now. How's that working out for you? Looks like you've really hit rock bottom." Jake felt a flush of anger rise in his chest. He tossed his phone onto the bed, the screen lighting up with the mocking words. With a deep breath, he tried to push the negativity aside. After all, he had come to this coastal town to escape the suffocating pressure of his past, to find clarity and purpose. But Alex's message echoed in his mind, a constant reminder of the expectations that loomed like a dark cloud over him. "Just ignore it," he murmured to himself, but the words felt hollow. He stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the horizon where the ocean met the sky, a canvas of blues and whites that seemed to stretch infinitely. "What am I doing here?" he whispered, grappling with the internal struggle between his former life and his current path. He thought of his family, the hopes they had for him, and the pride he had once felt in building a startup that promised innovation and success. But now, that dream felt distant, like a mirage, fading away. "Is this really what I want?" Jake questioned the reflection in the glass. Just then, his phone buzzed again, breaking his thoughts. This time, it was Sarah, his new friend and ally in the sustainable movement. "Hey, are you okay? Let's meet at the cafe. I think we need to talk about how to move forward." Jake took a moment before responding, unsure of how to articulate his feelings. "Yeah, I'll be there in a bit," he typed back, the weight of Alex's words still heavy on his heart. As he made his way to the cafe, he replayed the message in his mind. "A failure," he thought bitterly. "Is that what I am now?" He had envisioned a life of success and impact, yet here he was, redefining himself in a community that valued simplicity over status. When he arrived at the cafe, the warm aroma of freshly brewed coffee enveloped him. Sarah was already seated at a small wooden table, her vibrant energy a stark contrast to his mood. She waved enthusiastically, her smile infectious. "Jake, I'm so glad you made it. How are you holding up?" she asked, concern flickering in her eyes. "Honestly, I got a message from an old colleague and it hit me hard," Jake admitted, sinking into the chair across from her. "They think I'm a joke now, that I've failed." "Forget them," Sarah said firmly, her voice unwavering. "You're not a failure. You're doing something meaningful. This community needs people like you, people who care." Jake sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I know, but it's hard to shake off the past. It feels like I'm constantly being pulled back into that world. Social media can be toxic, Jake. It's easy to get caught up in what others think. What matters is what you believe in and the impact you want to make," Sarah encouraged, leaning forward earnestly. "You're not alone in this. We're building something here, and it's bigger than any of us." He looked into her eyes, searching for reassurance. "You really think so?" "Absolutely. Look at how far we've come in such a short time. You've inspired people already, and that's just the beginning," she said, her enthusiasm palpable. Jake took a deep breath, feeling a flicker of hope ignite within him. "You're right. I can't let one message define my journey. I need to focus on what we're creating here, not what I left behind." "Exactly. Let's keep pushing forward together," Sarah said, raising her coffee cup in a toast. "To new beginnings." Jake smiled, lifting his own cup in response. To new beginnings. As he took a sip of the rich coffee, he felt a renewed sense of purpose wash over him. The shadows of his past still lingered, but with Sarah by his side, he was ready to face whatever came next, knowing that his journey was just beginning. Jake stood in the small sunlit room of the community center, a sense of nervous excitement coursing through him. The walls were adorned with colorful posters promoting sustainable practices, and the scent of fresh coffee wafted through the air. It was the day they had decided to launch their online platform, a venture that aimed to connect consumers with sustainable businesses. Jake looked around, noting the mix of familiar faces and new ones in the crowd. Sarah was busy arranging the seating, her energy infectious. "Are you ready for this?" Sarah asked, her eyes sparkling with anticipation. Jake nodded, though he felt a flutter of doubt in his stomach. "I think so. But what if they don't get it? What if they think we're just a couple of idealists chasing a dream? Then we show them that it's not just a dream," she replied confidently. "We have the data, the stories, and the community behind us. This is going to be big." As the room began to fill, Jake took a deep breath, trying to steady his nerves. He glanced at the stack of pamphlets they had prepared, detailing the platform's features and benefits. It was a simple concept tone that aimed to promote responsible consumption by highlighting local, sustainable businesses, but it felt monumental to him. Once the seats were filled, Sarah opened the event, her voice ringing through the room. "Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for the launch of our platform, Sustainably Yours. We believe that by connecting consumers with businesses that prioritize the planet, we can make a real difference in our community." The audience clapped enthusiastically, and Jake felt a swell of pride. He had never imagined himself standing here a year ago, and yet, here he was, part of something larger than himself. After the initial presentation, it was time for Jake to speak. He took the stage, his palms clammy but his heart racing with purpose. "Thank you for being here," he began, his voice steadying as he looked out at the supportive faces. "A year ago, I was lost. I came to this town searching for clarity after my previous life fell apart. What I found was a community that values sustainability and connection. Sustainably Yours is not just a platform, it's a movement towards a better future." As he spoke, he could see the audience leaning in, engaged by his passion. "We have the power to change how we consume, to support businesses that care for our planet. Together we can create a marketplace that reflects our values." Just as the momentum of his speech was building, the door swung open, and in walked a familiar face, one of his former investors from Silicon Valley, Mark Jensen. Jake's heart sank. Mark's reputation for being dismissive of anything that didn't yield immediate profit was well known. He scanned the room, clearly unimpressed, and folded his arms as he took a seat near the back. After Jake finished, he noticed Mark whispering to a few attendees, casting skeptical glances at the presentation. The energy in the room shifted slightly, and Jake felt the weight of Mark's presence. Nevertheless, he pressed on, introducing Sarah to the audience as his partner in this venture. "Together, we aim to foster a culture of sustainability that can benefit everyone, from consumers to local businesses," Sarah said, her tone unwavering. "But we need your help. Let's create a community that prioritizes the health of our planet over mere profit." As they opened the floor for questions, Jake's heart raced again when Mark raised his hand. "So, let me get this straight," he said, his tone dripping with sarcasm. "You two think you can change the world with a website? This sounds like a nice little hobby, but what's the real plan here? How do you expect to compete with big corporations?" Jake felt a surge of anger mixed with determination. "It's not just about competition, Mark. It's about consciousness. People are becoming more aware of their choices. They want to support businesses that align with their values. We're giving them a way to do that." Mark smirked, leaning back in his chair. "Good luck with that. Most people only care about the lowest price, not some feel-good initiative." Before Jake could respond, the crowd murmured restlessly, sensing the tension. "Actually," a woman from the audience interjected, raising her hand, "I think that's changing. We want to know where our products come from and how they impact the world. We need platforms like yours to guide us." The applause that followed surprised even Jake. He exchanged a glance with Sarah, who smiled with encouragement. They had ignited something, a spark of hope in the room, and despite Mark's presence, they were pushing forward. The event continued, and as Jake and Sarah wrapped up, Jake felt a sense of accomplishment. They had begun to create a dialogue, a community united by purpose. If only they could maintain this momentum in the face of challenges to come. Jake stood at the window of the small community center, gazing out at the vibrant green hills that surrounded the town. The air was crisp, filled with the scent of salt water and the earthy aroma of freshly turned soil. The community had come together in ways he had never anticipated, but the peace he felt was suddenly overshadowed by the nagging tension that had arisen. The last meeting had left a bitter taste in his mouth. Sarah had been excited to share their innovative ideas to promote sustainability, but not everyone had agreed. The rift between the radical activists and those who preferred more moderate approaches was growing. It was now apparent that some residents were feeling alienated, and he couldn't shake the worry that division could threaten everything they had worked for. "Do you think we can really bring everyone together?" Jake asked Sarah as they sat on a worn wooden bench outside the center. The sun was setting, casting a warm golden hue over everything. He turned to face her, his brow furrowed in concern. Sarah crossed her arms, her expression one of determination mixed with uncertainty. "We have to try, Jake. If we don't, we'll lose the momentum we've built. I believe in what we're doing, but I know not everyone sees it the same way." Just then, a tall man with a scruffy beard and a beanie approached them. His name was Tom, one of the more radical activists who had been vocal about his disdain for any compromise. "You two are wasting your time," he said, his voice dripping with disdain. "These business owners don't care about sustainability. They only care about profit." Jake felt a surge of frustration. "That's not true, Tom. Some of them want to change but don't know how. We have to show them there's a better way." Tom scoffed, shaking his head. "You think they'll listen? They'll only see you as weak. If we keep bending to their demands, we'll never make real change happen." Sarah interjected. "But if we don't engage in dialogue, we'll be stuck fighting a battle we can't win. We need to find common ground, or else we'll just drive each other apart." Tom's eyes narrowed. "Common ground? That's just a nice way of saying we should compromise our values. I'm not interested in appeasing anyone." He stormed off, leaving an uncomfortable silence between Jake and Sarah. Jake exhaled sharply, feeling the weight of the situation pressing down on him. What if he's right, Sarah? What if we're not strong enough to hold this community together? Sarah placed her hand on his shoulder. "We can't let fear dictate our actions. We need to stay focused on our mission. Let's organize a community event, a space where everyone can voice their opinions, and we can start to bridge this divide." Jake nodded slowly, feeling a flicker of hope. "That could work. If we provide a platform for everyone to speak, maybe we can find a way forward." As they discussed plans for the event, Jake's mind raced with possibilities. He envisioned a gathering filled with discussions, workshops, and the sharing of ideas. But as the days passed, he couldn't shake the feeling that the tension was only escalating, and he knew they would need to tread carefully. The day of the event arrived, and the community center buzzed with energy. People mingled, exchanging ideas and opinions, but Jake could sense an underlying current of dissent. As he stepped onto the stage to welcome everyone, he felt the weight of their expectations pressing down on him. "Thank you all for being here today," Jake began, his voice steady but filled with urgency. "We're here to listen to each other, to share our thoughts on sustainability, and to work toward a common goal. But we can't do that if we're divided." From the back of the room, Tom crossed his arms, his expression skeptical. "And what if we don't want to compromise?" he shouted, his voice cutting through the crowd. Jake took a deep breath, trying to remain calm. "This isn't about compromising our values. It's about finding solutions that work for everyone. We all want a healthy community and planet, right?" The murmurs of agreement were faint but present. It was a start, but Jake knew they had a long way to go. As he looked out at the faces in the crowd, he realized that the path to unity would be anything but easy. The sun hung low in the sky, casting a warm golden hue over the coastal town as Jake prepared for the community event. He stood at the entrance of the community center, taking in the sight of colorful banners fluttering in the breeze, each adorned with messages about sustainability and the environment. Excitement buzzed in the air, but beneath that, Jake felt a knot of anxiety tightening in his stomach. He had invited everyone, friends, activists, and even local business owners, hoping this would be a turning point for their growing movement. As the crowd began to gather, Jake caught sight of Sarah at the front of the room, adjusting the microphone. Her enthusiasm was infectious, and he felt a flicker of hope. After weeks of planning and discussions, today was their chance to unite the community under a common cause. He approached her as she finished her preparations. "Are you ready for this?" Jake asked, trying to mask his nerves with a smile. "More than ready," Sarah replied, her eyes sparkling. "Just wait until everyone hears what we have planned. This is going to change everything." Jake nodded, feeling the weight of the responsibility resting on his shoulders. As the room filled with people, he noticed a mix of familiar faces and newcomers. It was a diverse gathering, yet he sensed an underlying tension between the group's activists on one side, wary business owners on the other. The event kicked off with Jake taking the stage. He cleared his throat, glancing around the room, and began, "Thank you all for coming today. We're here to share ideas, to learn from each other, and to find common ground in our pursuit of sustainability." He paused, gauging the reactions in the crowd. "Today, we want to hear your voices and your ideas. We believe that together we can make a difference." As the applause faded, Sarah took her place at the podium. "I want to start by talking about the importance of respecting nature," she began, her passion evident. "Every decision we make impacts our environment, and it's our duty to ensure that those impacts are positive. It's not just about living sustainably for ourselves, but for future generations." The audience listened intently, some nodding in agreement, others crossing their arms defensively. Jake could see a few local business owners whispering among themselves, their expressions skeptical. He held his breath, hoping the message would resonate. Sarah continued, "We have to think about our choices not just for profit, but for the planet. Imagine a world where our children can breathe clean air, drink pure water, and enjoy the beauty of nature without fear of destruction. That's the world we can create together." As she finished, the room erupted in applause, but Jake noticed a few glances exchanged among the business owners. He could almost hear the murmurs of dissent. Just as the atmosphere shifted toward optimism, a voice broke through the applause. "Respect is all well and good," a stout man with a thick mustache called out, standing up from the back of the room. "But how do you expect us to make a living when you're pushing for these drastic changes? We can't just throw away our livelihoods because of some idealistic dream." The tension in the room thickened, and Jake's heart raced. He exchanged a worried look with Sarah, who appeared unfazed by the interruption. "Sir, I understand your concerns," she replied calmly, her voice steady. "But we're not asking for drastic changes overnight. We're advocating for a gradual transition that could benefit not just the environment, but your businesses as well. Sustainable practices can attract more customers who care about the planet." The man scoffed, shaking his head. "You think people will pay more for organic produce or eco-friendly products? They want what's cheap and easy. You're living in a fantasy." Jake stepped forward, feeling the urgency of the moment. "That's exactly the point we need to address," he said, his voice taking on a firm tone. "There's a growing market for sustainable products. People are becoming more conscious of their choices. If we can work together to promote these practices, we can create a win-win situation for everyone." The room was silent, the tension palpable. Jake's heart raced as he felt the weight of their words hanging in the air. Would they listen? Would they see the potential for change? He glanced at Sarah, who nodded encouragingly, and he knew they had to push forward, no matter the obstacles ahead. Jake and Sarah sat across from each other at the small wooden table in the corner of the local cafe, the scent of freshly brewed coffee mingling with the salty ocean breeze that wafted through the open window. The atmosphere was vibrant, with laughter and chatter filling the air, but their focus was sharp, each of them aware of the storm brewing on the horizon. "Jake, we can't ignore the concerns of the business owners," Sarah said, her voice steady yet tinged with urgency. "If we don't address their fears, we risk losing their support completely." Jake nodded, running a hand through his hair, the weight of the situation pressing heavily on his shoulders. "I know, but their reaction at the last meeting was so defensive. They see our message as a threat rather than an opportunity for collaboration. We need to find a way to show them that sustainability can benefit everyone." "I agree," Sarah replied, leaning forward, her eyes bright with determination. "What if we organize a round-table discussion? A space where both sides can voice their opinions without fear of retribution? Transparency might just be our best tool." "A round table sounds promising," Jake mused, contemplating the idea. "It could help break down the barriers between us and them. But we need to ensure they feel safe to speak honestly. If they think we're just going to shove our ideas down their throats, they'll never engage." "Exactly. We'll emphasize that this is about finding common ground," Sarah said, her enthusiasm infectious. "Let's invite them to share their concerns first. We can listen and then present our perspective. It's crucial they see us as allies, not adversaries." Jake smiled, the tension in his shoulders easing slightly. "I like that approach. Let's draft an invitation that highlights the importance of community collaboration. If we frame it right, they might even feel empowered to bring their ideas to the table." As they continued brainstorming, Jake's mind began to race with possibilities. "We could also include some data on how sustainable practices have benefited other local economies. Facts and figures could help sway their opinions." "Yes, we should show them real examples, tangible benefits," Sarah added, her excitement palpable. "Let's make it a point to highlight that sustainability isn't just an abstract concept, it's practical and profitable." With their plan taking shape, they finalized the details of the roundtable discussion, agreeing to send out invitations to the business owners that very afternoon. As they left the cafe, the sun hung low in the sky, casting a golden hue over the town. Days later, the roundtable event arrived, and Jake stood at the front of the community center, his heart pounding in his chest. The room buzzed with a mixture of anticipation and skepticism as local business owners, activists, and residents settled into their seats. Jake took a deep breath and glanced at Sarah, who nodded encouragingly from the side. "Thank you all for coming today," Jake began, his voice steady despite the nerves. "We're here to foster open dialogue about sustainability and how it can impact our community positively. We value your input and want to understand your concerns." A man in a crisp blue shirt raised his hand, his expression skeptical. "Why should we change what's already working? We're running successful businesses. Your ideas sound nice, but they could hurt our bottom line." Jake nodded, acknowledging the man's point. "That's a valid concern. But what if I told you that businesses that adopt sustainable practices often see increased customer loyalty? People today care about where their products come from, and they're willing to pay more for responsibly sourced goods." Another woman chimed in, her arms crossed defensively. "But what about the costs associated with making those changes? We're already operating on tight margins." "Absolutely, and we understand that," Sarah interjected, stepping forward. "That's why we want to explore ways to support you in this transition. We're not here to impose. We want to find solutions together. Let's discuss ways we can make these practices accessible and beneficial for everyone." As the dialogue continued, Jake noticed a shift in the room. Business owners began to share their own concerns, revealing fears of losing customers or being unable to afford new practices. Jake listened intently, taking notes and acknowledging their feelings, while Sarah provided reassurances and offered examples from other towns that had successfully integrated sustainable practices. "Imagine if we could create a network of support among local businesses," Jake suggested, inspired by the discussion. We could share resources, offer workshops, and even collaborate on marketing strategies that highlight our commitment to sustainability. Slowly, the tension in the room dissipated, replaced by a sense of possibility. As the discussion progressed, Jake could see the business owners softening, their defensiveness giving way to curiosity. They began asking questions, seeking information, and expressing interest in exploring sustainable options. By the end of the meeting, Jake felt a wave of relief wash over him. He could sense that they had taken a significant step forward in bridging the gap between the activists and the business community. As people began to stand and chat amongst themselves, Sarah turned to Jake, a proud smile on her face. "See? Transparency works. They just needed to feel heard," she said, her eyes sparkling with hope. Jake nodded, filled with a renewed sense of purpose. "We're on the right path, Sarah. Together we can make a real difference." The sun dipped low on the horizon as Jake stood in front of the audience at the local conference, the warm light casting a golden hue over the room. Excitement and anxiety mingled within him as he watched the crowd settle into their seats, their faces a mixture of curiosity and skepticism. This was his moment, a chance not only to share his journey, but to inspire others to embrace sustainable innovation. Taking a deep breath, he stepped up to the microphone. "Thank you all for being here today. My name is Jake Thompson, and I'm here to share my story not just of failure, but of transformation." He paused, scanning the audience, hoping to connect with them on a personal level. He could see Sarah in the front row, her encouraging smile giving him a boost of confidence. "I once had a startup in Silicon Valley, a dream fueled by ambition and the promise of success," he continued. "But when it collapsed, I found myself lost, questioning everything I had built my life around." He could feel their eyes widening, some leaning in closer, intrigued. "I thought success was measured by how much money you made or how many followers you had on social media. But I learned that true fulfillment comes from something much deeper." As he shared the details of his journey, Jake noticed a mix of nods and furrowed brows. He spoke passionately about his struggles and his eventual move to the coastal town, where he found a community dedicated to sustainability. "In this town, I discovered people who were not only living differently, but were also fighting for a cause they believed in. They taught me that every small action counts, that we can all make a difference, no matter our past." The audience began to respond, murmurs of agreement echoing through the room. "It's easy to feel overwhelmed by the scale of environmental issues we face today," he continued. "But what if we all committed to making just one change in our lives? What if we supported local businesses that prioritize sustainability? Together, we can create a ripple effect." He glanced at Sarah, who nodded enthusiastically as she whispered to a friend next to her, "He's really nailing it." Jake felt a surge of confidence from her support. He transitioned into the heart of his message, discussing the online platform he and Sarah had created to connect consumers with sustainable businesses. "Imagine a marketplace where every purchase you make not only supports local artisans, but also contributes to a healthier planet," he proposed, his voice gaining strength. "We're making it easier for people to choose sustainability without sacrificing quality. It's about creating a community that believes in responsible consumption." A hand shot up from the back of the room. "But how do we know that these businesses are truly sustainable?" a woman challenged, her arms crossed skeptically. "Great question," Jake replied, smiling. "We're implementing strict criteria for businesses to qualify for our platform. Transparency is key. We want consumers to feel confident that their choices are making a real impact." He felt the tension ease as he engaged with the audience, welcoming their questions and concerns. As the panel progressed, Jake shared stories of local businesses that had thrived by adopting sustainable practices, showcasing how their success could inspire others. "One of our partners, a local bakery, sources all their ingredients from nearby farms. They not only reduce their carbon footprint, but they also support the local economy. This is the kind of change we need to see everywhere." After his presentation, he felt a wave of relief wash over him. The applause was loud and enthusiastic, echoing in the conference hall. As he stepped down, a man in a crisp suit approached him with an air of authority. "That was impressive, Jake. I'm with a company that supports sustainable initiatives, and we'd like to discuss potential funding for your platform." Jake's heart raced. This was the opportunity he had been hoping for. "Thank you. I'd love to hear more about it," he replied, trying to keep his excitement in check. The man leaned closer, a serious expression crossing his face. "However, there's one condition. If we move forward, you'll need to leave behind your past ventures. We want someone who is fully committed to this new vision." Jake froze, the weight of the proposition hanging in the air. He thought of his former life in Silicon Valley, the hustle, the competition, the constant chase for success. But now, standing in this new reality, he felt a sense of purpose that was far more rewarding. "I appreciate the offer, but my past is part of who I am. I won't abandon it, nor will I compromise my values," he replied firmly. The man's brow furrowed, but Jake could see a flicker of respect in his eyes. "I understand. Just know that the path you choose will shape your future more than you can imagine." As Jake walked away, he felt a renewed sense of clarity. He had come too far to let his past define him. Today was just the beginning of a journey that would continue to challenge him, but he was ready to embrace it. With Sarah and the community behind him, he was determined to make a lasting impact. As Jake sat in the small cafe, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee mingling with the salty air, he couldn't shake the unease that had settled in his stomach since receiving the funding proposal. The offer was tempting, yet it came with strings attached. He was to leave behind his past for good. He sipped his coffee, pondering the implications. Was he ready to completely sever ties with his former life? Just as he was lost in thought, his phone buzzed on the table. A message from Sarah read, "Jake, we need to talk. I think something's going on with the platform." With a sigh, he set down his cup and headed to the community center, where Sarah had suggested they meet. When he arrived, he found her pacing back and forth, her brow furrowed with concern. "Jake, I think someone is sabotaging our platform," she said, her voice urgent. "I've been getting reports from users about glitches and missing listings, and the traffic has dropped significantly." "What? That's not possible," Jake replied, disbelief washing over him. "We've worked so hard to build this community. Why would anyone want to hurt us?" "I don't know, but I have a feeling it's someone from your old circle," she said, crossing her arms. "They could see the success we're having and want to take us down." Just then, a familiar face entered the room. Mark, one of Jake's former co-workers from Silicon Valley. He wore an unassuming smile, but Jake immediately felt a chill run down his spine. "Hey there, what's going on?" Mark asked, his tone too casual for the tension in the air. Jake exchanged glances with Sarah, then turned to face Mark. "We were just discussing some issues with the platform. Users are experiencing problems, and it feels like someone is intentionally trying to undermine our progress." Mark raised an eyebrow, feigning innocence. "Oh, come on, Jake. It's probably just technical glitches. You can't expect everything to run smoothly all the time when you're starting something new." "Yeah, but we've had this platform running smoothly for months now," Jake countered, his voice rising. "What do you know about it?" "I just think you're paranoid." Mark shrugged, but Jake could see the flicker of defensiveness in his eyes. "Paranoid? Or maybe you're just trying to divert attention away from the real problem," Sarah interjected, her gaze sharp. "We know something is wrong, and we're not going to let this slide." Jake felt a surge of determination. "Mark, if you're involved in this, I won't let you ruin what we've built here. We're trying to do something positive for the community. Why would you want to sabotage that?" Mark's expression hardened. "You think you can just walk away from your past and have a clean slate? You're nothing without the connections you made in Silicon Valley." Jake's heart raced. And you think I should just continue to live in your shadow? No. I'm moving forward, and I won't let you drag me back. As the atmosphere thickened with tension, Jake spotted a few community members gathering outside the door, their curiosity piqued by the raised voices. Let's take this outside, Jake suggested, his voice steady. If you want to talk about this, let's do it where others can see. Mark hesitated but ultimately followed Jake and Sarah outside, where the community members had assembled. The crowd was small but eager, their expressions a mix of confusion and concern. Everyone, we need to address something important, Jake began, his voice carrying confidence. There have been issues with the platform that we suspect may be sabotage. I want to ensure you all know what's happening and that we're committed to resolving this. What do you mean by sabotage? A local business owner asked, frowning. Someone is trying to undermine our work here, and I believe it's someone who doesn't want to see us succeed, Jake said, his gaze locking onto Mark. I won't let this go unnoticed. Mark, do you have anything to say? The crowd murmured, and Mark shifted uncomfortably. I think you're overreacting, Jake. There's no evidence of sabotage. Is that so? Jake said, his voice rising. Because I've seen the data, and I know that there's something off. I won't let anyone play with the integrity of our community. The tension reached its peak as Jake took a step forward. Mark, if you're involved in this, I'm calling you out. We all deserve to know the truth. The crowd turned their attention to Mark, their expressions a mix of skepticism and concern. Fine, I admit it, Mark finally spat out, his facade crumbling. I didn't want to see you succeed. You think you can just waltz in here after failing in the valley and act like you're some kind of hero? You're nothing without us. Gasps echoed through the crowd, and Jake felt a surge of vindication. He had exposed the truth, and with it, he could reclaim his narrative. Then let this serve as a reminder, Jake said, looking around at the community members. We're building something real here, and no one, especially someone stuck in the past, will take that away from us. Together, we will rise above this. The crowd erupted in applause, and Jake felt a wave of relief wash over him. Mark, now exposed, slunk away, leaving behind the weight of his manipulation. As the cheers filled the air, Jake realized that his journey was far from over, but he had taken a crucial step forward. In facing his past, he had strengthened his resolve for the future. True change, he thought, begins with the courage to confront what holds you back.